Issue 146. We start out right away with Shadow attacking Sonic for apparently no reason. After a long, pointless fight where Sonic gets him sprayed with water, Shadow leaves before Bunny and Tails could show up. Thinks about how even he had problems navigating around, and he's certain that all his answers could be found here, as already he's accessed data relevant to the mystery of his origins, including him. He asks a golden-looking Gamma the status and is asked why he left before Bunny could find him. I'd like to point out that seeing this Gamma made me immediately check paranoidly to see if I'd missed an issue, because why would they introduce him being buddies with this robot out of the blue like that when it makes no sense? Shadow explains that there's no logical reason for him not to pursue the hedgehog other than the buzzing in his head, which means memories. He recaps the last issue and explains that he went to Angel Island and found a signal among the mountains like the one Gerald had sent for the invasion of the Ark. He drops down to the ground from a high height and is somehow perfectly fine because he's the ultimate life form, and survived the defensive device creating blue smoke behind him. And that's when he had discovered the gold Gamma sealed within an airtight chamber instead of being either scrapped for metal or taken advantage of by Eggman. Shadow had released him because he was wondering if he was one of Gerald's creations, finding this Isaac robot similar to him. To his disappointment, some other professor created him instead, with a Professor Clark designing his hardware and Dr. Niven programming his software, and he doesn't know where either of them are. I really think I should have been shown Shadow first meeting Isaac before seeing him and getting confused. Upon running his diagnostics through the mainframe, Shadow learned that Isaac was created over 10 millennia ago but was never used, for some reason. Him never used is kind of contradicted later. Why the hell does he look just like Gamma, a robot Eggman built completely unrelated to him? I doubt Gamma got based on him since Eggman doesn't know that Isaac exists. Shadow is disappointed that while Overlanders made Isaac, they weren't related to Gerald. And then we see Sonic injured with Fiona and Rotor coming up to him, with Fiona being really worried right away. I was really wondering when the hell Fiona would be brought on a normal main mission with the main Freedom Fighters because she was surprisingly absent for a while. So what's she gonna be good for? Thank God she's finally wearing clothes. I like her design a lot more now. Rotor calls Bunny saying that he needs a medikit, and Bunny says she'll retrieve it from Freedom 1 and be back in a flash. Wait, Freedom 1? What's that? Didn't the first airship of theirs get destroyed? Tails is really worried at Bunny leaving without him and Tommy, and asks how they're going to find Sonic and Rotor, since Bunny dizzily took their comlink with her. With Fiona looking concerned, Sonic says that he's just exhausted, and after it's pointed out that he's banged up, he awkwardly says, "That obvious, huh?" Then he explains that while everyone else is playing around with the computers, he checked out the joint while waiting for the others to hook up with him, and Shadow asks him what he's doing here. I really think this should have been shown first too. I wasn't sure I'd get to see this at all. Then it's shown that the reason the fight started was from a lack of communication skills. As Shadow arbitrarily refused to tell Sonic why he's there, making himself look suspicious, and Sonic says he won't tell him why he's there either, just out of spite. Rotor says that he doesn't believe Shadow is related to Sonic in any way, or even a Mobian like them, even though he clearly looks like it, and is asked what he is, as if this is somehow the first time they're all learning about what Shadow is. But the SA2 adaptation happened, and was implied to be just like the game, so they should all know what Shadow is by now. Meanwhile, we cut to a flying roboticized thing, a flying spy for Robotnik, which sees Bunny going into an opening in rocks where the explosion from last issue happened. Eggman decides that what the heroes might find there could be used against them and decides to get into the game. He says that once he activates the power supply for a small sample of self-replicating pre-programmed microchips, he'll get, which ends the issue, a brand new Metal Sonic, which he decided to make with that and not simply making it like he did the other Metal Sonics. So is this going to be the point in the comic where Metal Sonic is trashed and humiliated so easily and frequently that Sega itself butts in and tells him to stop? For the second story, Rotor goes to wake up Tommy in his bed and at first screams at seeing what he thinks is him without his head, but turns out he's just hiding in his shell. I actually laughed, that was pretty clever. My question is, can he actually feel the bed under his shell? Does his shell have touch receptors too? It has to, I guess, but I don't know how he can lie on his back in bed just fine. He's reluctant to go explore Knothole, and before he can say something that they could do, Rotor leaves saying that he has to run maintenance on the techno tree, and then go back to the lab for something top secret. Then he's called his old nickname Boomer by Tommy since he knew him when he was little, and while it's lampshaded by Rotor, it's not lampshaded enough because 1, he doesn't just tell him he's not called that anymore, and 2, you'd think that with all the time he spent with him, he would know not to call him that by now by heart. Tommy then complains sadly that everyone's always so busy and he doesn't have anything to do, for some reason, even though he should just be able to do technology stuff with Rotor. And he points out that he talked to Sonic and Sally more when they rescued him than now. Rotor then confuses me by saying that he's sure he'll find something he's good at, even though we saw him earlier on reprogramming Robians to leave him alone, and he was seen with Rotor as one of the smart guys earlier, so wouldn't he already know what he's capable of? Either way, after Rotor panics that his files on the technical tree's system diagnostics are gone, Tommy tells him that he organized them in a prodigy-like way. He also had to force himself not to organize Rotor's clothes without his permission too. Rotor thanks him, fortunately, and then Tommy says about the technical tree that he may want to re-link the Delta connection and reinstall the input component, knowing what to do because he's been reading his files. So it's at this moment when Tommy was discovered by Rotor to be the perfect lab assistant for him, even though he also had Tails and Uncle Chuck for that. Can you see why he's redundant? Perfectly nice and fine, but redundant. At least his organization obsession gives him a quirk and talent. Then the story surprisingly continues as Rotor explains to Sally what Tommy was doing, and says that he's found a way to harness even more energy from the rings. He explains that normally when they increase the power output, the ring's stability decreases, which could be bad enough to level Knot Hole or simply burn the ring out. He's not sure which would happen. Sally gets Nicole to run a diagnostic of that ring. Wait, why did Sally trip when Tommy's job was to organize and thus clean up the lab? Apparently, Nicole and Sally switched bodies after Sally tripped on a wire and fell. Huh? How? It's a concept I love, but I don't know how it happened. A magic spell would have been a better explanation. Sally and Nicole's body is confused about how to scan the properties of a liquid, and after she figures out by doing it with the power of thought, she complains that it won't slow down, there's too much info, and she has to try to control the speed of it through the processor. Meanwhile, Nicole and Sally's body left the room, naturally absolutely loving being an organic body. She walks through some greenery saying, "The colors, the smells, my limbs move at my command. Everything about this experience is so intoxicating. So this is what it's like to be alive, to feel, to love?" For some reason, just seeing Sonic in Sally's body makes her get flustered at seeing Sonic, proving that love truly is just a physical, hormonal, chemical process invading the personality in this comic, and has nothing to do with the soul or the mind. Because Nicole didn't love him before. I guess it makes sense. Nicole says, "Sonic, I don't know why this body has a feeling of happiness and sadness concentrated in the chest area when I look at you. It is most strange." Then after she passes out, it turns out the effects of the body switching were only disappointingly temporary. So much for having a properly sized story, or even story arc about this fascinating concept. If the body switching doesn't make sense, then it wearing off so fast makes even less sense. Did the magic in Nicole leak out? Is that what happened? I actually had to look it up to find out that the reason they body switched was because they were both drenched by a mysterious blue liquid in a beaker in Rotor's lab. They didn't make that remotely clear in the panels. Sally, or rather Nicole, didn't have to wipe down her hair because she was drenched with the blue liquid. So the first story was written by Ken Penders, and I found it annoying how out of order in chronology its events were. We should have started with Shadow meeting Isaac, the ancient Gold Gamma, and then went to Sonic fighting Shadow from a frustrated lack of communication skills on either end, and then seeing the rest of the story with Sonic being hurt. Bunny flies off with something Tails needs to track down Sonic, which I really hope will be acknowledged as a ditzy mistake on her part because she needs more than just a short temper as personality flaws to be a well-rounded, believable character. Her being a little flighty would have been good too. And I also like how Fiona got worried about Sonic so easily, and seemingly more than everyone else did. It's the third time she's shown compassion as far as we know. The first being when she told Nicolette after breaking out of the cell she's now safe there, and the second being when she looked worried when Tails was almost hit by the plane. The rest of the issue is by Romy Chacon. The second story involved teaching us that Tommy's unique skill was a prodigy-level organizing skill. This causes him to be hired as Rotor's lab assistant after him going through his data papers lets him give him a good solution to his problem. This would only make sense if this story was a prologue to Tommy being hired as his lab assistant for the first time, because I thought he was already in that position. I also sympathize with the fact that he was upset that he wasn't spending as much time as he thought he would with Sonic and Sally because everybody's busy. Again, he seems to be a perfectly fine character. The problem is he's so redundant with Rotor around. And his being hired to clean up Rotor's lab only makes the next story more confusing, because its whole plot hinges on there being a wire for Sally to trip on when Tommy should have gotten that wire out of the way. And yeah, the third story wastes a fantastic concept of Nicole and Sally switching bodies. Because one, I had to go look it up to see how it even happened since it was so unclear, making it feel very arbitrary. And two, they were switched so temporarily that they couldn't take advantage of the concept much. The only significance of the story is serving as the moment where Nicole started getting the desire for an organic body, because she realized just what she was missing. It really is a shame that the story was ended so quickly, because I can imagine if it went on for longer, having Nicole spend a whole day that way, for example, maybe things would have been more interesting. Like, I can imagine that an evil version of Nicole would have tried to run away with Sally's body to avoid losing it. This kind of concept really belonged in a whole story arc with a few issues about it, not just one short mini-story, and started by some arbitrary random magic liquid at that.